You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
Ladies and gents, this is Kevin Kierstead, host of Truth on Tap and Caps on Tap. I hope you're enjoying the show. Truth on Tap is focused on bringing you absolute truth about everything from mainstream media to comedy, from psychology to the paranormal. This show keeps it real, not the fake kind of real, the real kind of real. That same spirit also covers our Caps on Tap show about the Washington Capitals. Caps on Tap shows air only after Capitals wins at this time. Please come like our Facebook page and join the conversation at facebook.com/TruthOnTapShow. Truth on Tap has been picked up and promoted by iHeartRadio, the internet audio mega monster, so shows are available there as well as on Spreaker and a limited selection on iTunes. To get in on a show's chat, you can chat from the Facebook page I mentioned or go to www.spreaker.com/user/TruthOnTap and look for the live episode or call in at 910-NOLYING. That's 910-665-9464. Thanks again for checking out Truth on Tap and Caps on Tap.
You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
Opening up the truth pipeline for these bitches. Everyone wants to call it
Truth on Tap. Truth.
My right to say how I say it's mine to give. My mind, my heart, it's mine to share. My soul, my heart.
Truth on Tap.
Genghis featuring Stereo Black Star Super Negro gonna open it up, bitches. It's 7/22/2014, 10:02 p.m. Black Star. Are you ready for this? I don't think you are. I don't think you are. Do you have a seatbelt in your chair? Put that bitch on. Strap it in. Check it twice. We're gonna find out who's naughty and who's nice. That's right. Gonna have a special guest calling in a few minutes, Mr. Craig Comes, who will be my co-pilot and co-host. He's gonna tell you God is real. He's gonna tell you that people ought to govern themselves, and he's got data to support his claims. Do you believe that? What do you think about self-government? Are you a God person? Yeah, ma bon fonction. Je ne sais pas, je ne comprends pas. Vous savez grande tête, monsieur. Yeah, it's black. You know, the thing about the black rap from France is it doesn't feel like Compton. My brothers in Compton know what the fuck a hard life is. But don't come out of a cafe au lait shop with a croissant in one hand talking to me about how you're gangster. Too many vowels in French. You just can't be gangster in French. Don't do that. If you're in France, go paint something. Put on a small black hat and become a mime. That works in France. In France, you can impress women. Women love Frenchmen. Frenchmen are they're more touchy-feely. And they've done these studies. This is real. They during a typical lunch, a French person will touch his partner 30 or 40 times, to an American's 2 or 3 times. They got stuff we don't have in France. Good stuff, but not gangster rap. Listen, Genghis, you tried, you gave it a shot, but ultimately what was stacked against you was your native language. You should have learned English. You should have gone true gangster. You should have studied under Chuck D. That gun there just started a foot race. That's all you're going to do in France with a gun. You shoot the gun, people are, hey, here I go. Well, what are we doing, a 10K? I'm ready. I want to do a marathon. I heard the gun. I'm running. I don't know where the finish line is. I'll get there. Yeah, je travaille. Whatever. Oh, you know, that's how that works. What are you going to do about it? Go Genghis. Go Genghis. It's your birthday. Yeah. J'ai besoin d'aide maintenant. Whew. Let's get it, Genghis. Come on now. Don't leave me hanging. Now, before we get started on the show topic, I'm warming up. See, this is how I warm up. I get music that either pisses me off or entertains me. In this case, it's both. It's both. I'm not mad at Genghis, or I wouldn't play his stuff. But I gotta do Eno's generic hip hop session 1. That's my full warm up. It's only 1 minute and 48 seconds long. So, you know. But that's before we get formal here. See, we all have our warm up routines, don't we? I've got mine. And Wes Johnson will tell you who I am.
Listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
Yeah. Ain't nobody hating. Just procreating. That's all. Here it is. Uh-oh. Oh, my God. I'm moving like the ostrich. Here I go. I can't get enough of this. I think it's sweet that it's only 1 minute and 48 seconds long. That's all I need. I mean, this is energy fast-forwarded. Inject me, bitch. Yeah. Oh, I feel it. I'm almost there, folks. I'm almost ready for this show. Are you? Yeah, we're just about ready. Come on, Eno. Make me move. Make my brain move is all I'm asking right now. Larry King. How the fuck did Larry King get famous? He just sat there, didn't he? Looking like a little hunched over old man. Looking like a loggerhead turtle. Yeah, he's not a pretty man, is he? What was it about Larry King? Was it the suspenders? Was it the glasses? I mean, was it the cigarette-inspired voice? Let me ask you, hello, California. Yeah, Larry King was nothing special, right? But he made a name for himself. I wonder how he did that. I can't figure it out. I'm going to go ahead and say suspenders. I'll go with suspenders. That's what had to do. I mean, you got to have something. You got to have a bow tie or, a bad comb over. You got to talk like how would Coach sell or something. Something has to be special. You know, me, I've got the average voice. I don't have a good radio voice. I'm just bringing truth, bitches, and that's got to be enough for you. Got to be enough. Yeah. Thank you, Eno, E-N-O-E, Generic Hip Hop Session 1. Setting the pace for us tonight, which is going to be a fast one. Craig will be calling in a minute. I want to welcome you guys. Truth on Tap is the show. Your host, Kevin Kierstead. Tonight, we're getting into it. We're going to be getting into, as I stated, religion, self-government. Craig believes he knows what's wrong with America. Now, I'll give him a formal introduction when he calls in. But for right now, we're just going to open up the can that you will be drinking from tonight. All right? Ka-chink. I don't have a sound effect for that. So, I got to tell you, on a personal level, my stomach's bothering me a little bit. Whether or not this is nerve-related because we're doing an important show, or whether or not it has something to do, I think I have celiac disease, to be honest with you. And it's, last night I had, what did I have? I had a baked potato and chicken wings. And I think I wasn't supposed to eat the baked potato skin. So that's got me going a little bit right now. So let's hope that doesn't turn into anything disastrous. I mean, I don't want to be like Mike Tyson Holyfield 2, where I'm looking to foul to get out of the fight. I'm not biting any ears tonight, but I will bend yours, as will Craig. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Are you ready for this? Radio Boss Software, got to give a shout out to my friend Dimitri, who created this software. Dimitri, a Russian, well, he's out of Ukraine. He created this software, put in a feature that I requested. I love him for that. Love that guy. I love this software. Radio Boss does everything you wanted to do if you have a radio show. It does have a learning curve, but my God, is it versatile. For my little show, this thing could run a full station 24/7. But for my little show, it does a fine job too. You can customize the hell out of it. You can use 10% of it like I do, or you can get crazy with the sound effects and all, and programming, and leave for a week and it'll run. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. If I took this radio thing halfway seriously, I'd probably bother learning the other 90% of it. But I like that it's there. Who knows? I might take it seriously someday. You don't know. What I do take seriously is logic, reason, and critical thinking. What I do take very seriously is truth. We don't have to live in truth all the time. We can voluntarily walk away from the truth, but you must know when you're leaving the truth. What is the truth? Half the time we're operating on maybes, maybe more than half the time. I think it's important that we, Apocalypse is in there. What's up, Apocalypse? Round up the people. Craig wants to talk to him. Round them up. I want your God debates. I want your government debates. This is everything that matters, man. Politics and religion, all the shit we're not supposed to talk about. We're talking about it tonight. Yeah. There's Craig. Let me see if I can get him on here. Craig Comas is our guest tonight. Craig, are you there?
I think I am. Can you hear me?
Craig, I think you're there too. Yes, I can. I'm hearing a minimal distortion there. I think we're okay with that. Okay. Craig Comas, author, part-time journalist / column writer and teacher. Craig, can you tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you believe as a basic opening volley here?
Okay. Well, first of all, I am from Virginia Beach. Grew up there, graduated from Kempsville in 1983, which tells you that I'm ancient. Goodness. Again, just I guess a normal childhood in the dysfunctional 70s and 80s. Let's see. I moved to Richmond to go to VCU, and I started as a theater major and realized I just was not that talented, and then switched to English. And around the same time, let's see. I guess I'd been like kicking and screaming, resisting Christ for about 10 years at that point. And I finally decided to check the Bible out, and I liked what I read. I read the Gospels, but the question in my mind was, well, okay, this is good. I like it. How do I know it's true? Why should I bet my life on this here? And so I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the Good Guys. They were a band that played up and down the East Coast back in the 80s. But anyway, the lead guitarist, his name is Harry Gore. He still plays. And, he recommended a book by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity, and another one by Josh McDowell called Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And I read those, and to be honest with you, which is kind of shameful for an English major, I really struggled to understand those books. Like one thing I realized from those books is that there were Christians who had brains. C.S. Lewis was nobody's fool. So anyway, at that point, I became a Christian. I joined a church, and I really tried to live it out with varying degrees of success. I got married, got 3 daughters, 3 grandsons now. As far as politically, I was really politically unaware of what was happening. Really up until Obama became president, and I'm not trying to pick on him or anything, but he was making a whole lot of changes all at once. And
is that what got your attention? A sudden flood of changes from a presidential office?
it exactly. It's like the old story. You throw a frog in a pot of boiling water, he's going to jump out. But if you just cook him slowly, he'll just, go to sleep and die. And I think that's where we were for a long time. The pot was heating up, government was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I think that most people just simply weren't paying attention to it. I sure wasn't. I was vaguely aware of the deficit. Probably the only thing I did to keep myself aware is I read a lot of op-ed columns. And, when I did, I pretty much just kind of, grunted in agreement or got really angry about it. And then I did nothing. I think maybe there was once or twice I wrote a letter to the editor. But that was that and voting was the extent of my political involvement. And I'm ashamed to say it, I was asleep right through the Bush years. I didn't pay attention to the Patriot Act, which, the progressives were screaming about. And as we found out, they had a point. There were some provisions in that act which, again, allowed the government to spy on the citizens. It's ridiculous. But like I said, when Obama became president and just like, making huge changes from, day one, I mean, just, adding trillions of dollars to the deficit very, very quickly. And he was, trying to fix the economy. But, whenever the government tries to fix the economy invariably gets worse. We've seen that with the Great Depression, beginning with Hoover, then moving on to Roosevelt. But they were passing unconstitutional laws. They were taking over car companies. Obama's foreign policy, I I thought, and I still think, that it's doing bad things for America's interests. I mean, he's been alienating our allies and encouraging our enemies, and we've seen that with the oh my gosh, what's happening with ISIS in Syria and Iraq. I mean, we actually had Iraq on a pretty decent path, and we just abandoned them. And again, I just felt the America I grew up in was slipping away.
Right.
I started affiliating myself a little bit with the Tea Party. I'm really, I don't know, I may be kind of stubborn, maybe gunshot, I don't know what it is. I just don't like to join groups. But I noticed that they were really trying to, rein in the Democrats, with having protests and whatnot. They put a pretty good resistance on for Obamacare for a long time. But, people were awake. And after the 2010 election, when the Republicans took over the House, I was actually just a little bit hopeful that they could slow down the Obama agenda. And needless to say, I was disappointed. Obama was able to get the Republicans to cave in time after time by threatening government shutdowns and blaming the Republicans. Are you still there?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. I didn't know if I was I was talking to myself at one point. I've occasionally hung up on people with the phone. This is too much technology for me. But again, Obama got the Republicans, just to give up because he threatened the government shutdown, and when that happened before, Republicans always got bad press. And but anyway, during all this, I noticed three things. Number one, the media was painting the Tea Party as radical extremists who were racist and just weren't on the right side of history. I think it was like Newsweek in February 2009 declared that we were all socialists now. So the Tea Party, who was just resisting that, they were just trying to stop the unavoidable march of socialism. Two, conservatives were not very good about getting their message out. And up till now, I still think they haven't done a very good job of it. And the message that they're getting out, to what extent they can, is really incomplete. It's really about what they don't want. They'll talk about government programs, talk about this or that department, but conservatives generally don't talk about the kind of America that they do want. It sure didn't say anything. I'm sorry?
I agree with that. I think that's part of their problem in that party right now.
Yeah, it's well, again, the mainstream, the establishment Republicans. I mean, they don't really have a coherent message, and the conservative Republicans, just for one reason or another, have not been able to get the message out. And like I said, I think the message is incomplete, which is what a lot of my book is about. The conservative message, it doesn't say anything about citizens' responsibilities. I mean, what if the conservatives took over, the presidency and the Congress and the Supreme Court tomorrow, and they were able to, start sunsetting Social Security, for example? What would they replace that with? What are people supposed to do in response to that? I haven't heard anything from them. What if all the need-based welfare programs were done away with? What's supposed to happen at that point? Again, they haven't given an answer for that. And the liberals ask about that, and they have a good question there. The third thing I noticed is that. Go ahead.
Craig, before we go any further, since we're diving right into the meat of your argument here, let's tell people how to find your book. You got a book out now, and let's tell people how to find and follow you in the future.
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. Well, number one, the book is not out quite yet. The book is called Power to the People, Really. And it's going to come out sometime August, September. I'm really self-publishing this thing, and I'm taking it slow so I can do it right. I'm not going to put out an inferior book, whether in terms of the material, as well as, having a good book that's, physically set up so it won't break apart. And like I'm doing things like, I'm, going to printers and all that kind of stuff. And, but anyway, like I said, it's going to come out. But if they want to, I can send anybody who wants to a sample of it. Just email me personally. It's Craig Comas. It's all one word. That's one M and two S's at the end, at yahoo.com. And I'll be happy to send you a sample. It's got like the first 3 chapters, table of contents, the introduction, so you can see what the book is about. And if you like what you see, just let me know. I'll reserve a book for you. The book will come out in paperback. It will definitely be less than $20, and I'm really going to try to get it under $15. I'd rather sell a whole lot of books, than sell a few. I want to get the message out there. Okay.
I looked at the interview questions that you had sent to me, and I wanted to ask you about this. You said there's a 10-question quiz I'm looking at here for the listeners and viewers as an introduction. And this 10-question quiz, I won't read the whole thing, but basically it's saying, "Hey America, do you know who's running your government?" And
pretty much.
Name 5 current members of the president's cabinet in their positions. Now, most of the people I know probably couldn't do that, even if they're moderately interested in politics. Do you think that knowing the names of these people is any indication that someone understands how their government is operating, or vice versa?
Well, not necessarily. And let me confess to you, I was going through the questions beforehand just because I wanted to be ready. And on that very question, I couldn't get beyond 3 off the top of my head. I was just, I don't know what, tired or what. I'm usually asleep by this time of night, by the way.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not a problem. It's your show, and I caffeinated it at like 6:30, 7 o'clock, so I'd be aware of what's going on. But if you don't know some of these basic things, I'm not saying you got to know every single cabinet position and who's the head of it and everything, but you should know what the different cabinet positions are, especially the ones that are unconstitutional. If you don't know who the Supreme Court justices are, like when they make these major votes, you don't understand what's going on. It's kind of like I've been a teacher for 25 years, and we talk about, there's different levels of comprehension. And the first level is like recall, okay, and that's recalling information. And the second level is inferential. You can kind of read between the lines. But if you don't have the first, if you can't recall the information, you really can't make any inferences because you don't know what you're talking about. You don't have enough information for it. And I don't know if you've heard the phrase. I think Rush Limbaugh's been kicking around low information voters. Yeah. My take on a lot of Americans, again, this is based on talking to people. Listen to what people have to say, is that most Americans are low information voters. We sort of
we're a largely uninformed voting public. Is that your claim?
Yeah. We're busy watching Dancing with the Stars. Going out and getting ourselves.
Yeah, it's true. But there's a part of me that roots for that freedom of voting, even if you're dumb. Wouldn't you say that that's part of what we fought for over the last couple of 100 years?
Oh, I agree. We fought for the freedom to vote, but it really doesn't do us much good if we really don't know who we're voting for. If we don't know, for example, I live in the 7th district. And we just had the nomination, the Republican nomination, where Dave Bratt, he unseated Eric Cantor, and for the first time, it just seemed like some people were actually paying attention. They knew Eric Cantor's record, they knew what he stood for, what he didn't stand for. I will say that Eric Cantor gave Dave Bratt a lot of free press. But for the first time, I think the people who voted in this, and again, these are going to be your more informed voters because to vote in the primary, but the voters really had a better idea of who these two guys were.
Right. So why do you think, since they were an informed voting public in that particular case, why do you think Cantor was booted?
He was booted? Well, one thing is, and he sent out a lot of flyers, the cardboard things with his face on it. I could have wallpapered at least one wall with all the ones I got. But on the flyer, he would do things like accuse Dave Bratt of being a liberal college professor, when everybody just plainly knew that wasn't true.
Right.
So like I say, he gave him the free press. Dave Bratt had a website; people could check it out. And so, when a politician's lying to you because you're a little bit informed anyway, this guy is somebody you really can't trust. We'll see what happens with Bratt if he gets elected, I hope.
Now, from a political perspective, where are you coming from? What do you believe is the right? Let me ask you this: if the American public was an informed voting public, who do you think would hold the power?
Well, the people, because we have this really strange way of looking at people whose salaries we pay. We vote for these guys, we send them to Washington, and we think, so many Americans think that they're going to save the economy. We've given them an awful lot of power. I mean, these guys are playing around with $3.5 trillion every year now, and we just trust them to Danica Patrick said, she said that she trusted the people in Washington to make good decisions for all Americans. If the people were really in charge, then the congressmen really would be answering to us and talking to us more than just at election time. The people.
But why would that matter if they're not honest, though? You know what I mean?
Well, if we're keeping track of their votes, if we're and again, I'm not saying spend 24 hours a week or watching what's going on in Washington, although we do need to spend some time. If we're aware of what they're doing, at the very least, if we don't like what they're doing, we can vote them out after a couple years. At least with the House, with the Senate, it takes 6 years. And we've had some recall elections recently. There was the governor of California. He was recalled, and I think that's when Arnold Schwarzenegger got in. I may have my dates wrong there. There was a recall election in Wisconsin for, I believe the guy's name is Scott Walker. That failed. But if these guys aren't doing what we sent them up there to do, there's no reason we can't have a recall election. It'd be a pain in the neck, but we could do it.
Yeah.
But again, that people would have to be aware and engaged.
This argument you have for self-government, though, this is one I don't hear too often, and yet when I looked on the internet to poke around at it, because it's not something I've studied, I found quite a following for it. I found a lot of supporting websites and people participating in those websites. When you say self-government, can you explain in a little detail to somebody who doesn't understand really? I know it sounds self-evident, but I don't think it is. I think the term itself is a little misleading. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Okay. Well, I really mean two different things by that. Okay. Self-government on a very personal level means governing ourselves, governing our behavior, making choices that, make sense and don't hurt ourselves or hurt other people. For example, let's say, economically governing ourselves. We need to go out and make a living. If we're not making enough money, then we need to get some education. We need to make some changes. We need to do something. We need to, make sure we're paying all the bills. We need to make sure that we are preparing for retirement.
Mm-hmm. You're breaking up a little there. Apocalypse, can you tell me if you're hearing him clearly?
Can you hear me?
You were breaking up a little bit there. I don't know if it was just for me or for the audience, so I'm asking. Apocalypse is in the chat room right now.
Oh, that's fine.
The last thing I heard you talking about was basically financially leading self-government.
Again, governing our, controlling our finances so that, hopefully, we'll never actually have to get on government assistance. Even let's say we lose a job, we got 6 months of living expenses saved, and so we got a little bit of a cushion there. My wife used to work with a man, and he was fired from his job. But it really wasn't a big deal because he had like 6 or 8 rental houses, and the rental houses provided all the income he needed to live. Right. He worked because he wanted to work.
But that's not the typical American position. Is it your position that the average person who doesn't have a savings should be stuck to begging on the streets if they are suddenly found without a job?
Okay. I'm not saying I'm not saying that. what should be, okay, I'm not saying this will happen, but if it doesn't happen, we're in major trouble. Because the welfare programs we have now, I mean, we can't sustain, we can't afford the money. We borrowed, I don't know, let's see, the debt right now is, about $18 trillion? We borrowed about $10 trillion from the next generation, which is ridiculous and wrong. But, we by the way, when you borrow things without people's permission, that's called stealing. But anyway, that's another subject. But we can't afford the welfare programs that we have anymore. We at least have to reform them. But what should happen is, like, when people get in financial trouble, they should be able to turn to their families. I mean, that should be the number one welfare, program. Right now we're a four generation household. My mother-in-law lives with us, and one of my daughters with her kids live with us. And I'm not going to go deep into it, so their business and everything, but we're just helping them out right now.
Right.
But if you lose a job, I mean, my goodness, I mean, shouldn't you be able to go to your parents or your brother, sister, somebody? And
what about the people that don't have family, or they've gone through some sort of drama and they can't ask their family? What do you tell them?
Well, hopefully we'll we have friends. I'd like to think that I helped my friends out as best I could. There was one time I was really stupid and I got myself in some major financial trouble. Like, my house was going to get foreclosed on, and it was my fault. I mean, there's there's no other way to say it. Well, I had some friends help me out to make a couple, one or two of those payments.
Mm-hmm.
After, and if you don't have friends who are willing to do it or can do it. A lot of people, still belong to churches, and the church I go to, they help a number of people in the congregation. The last, this recession that I think we're still in, at least as far as the employment rate, during this last recession, we had a lot of people that really struggled, and I'm not saying we did everything that people needed, but we did a lot. And then at that point, when friends and family and the church fail, that's a choice to choose to fail to do that. Then I think it becomes the responsibility of government, and really it should be the local and state government. The federal government is, there's nothing in the Constitution which gives them any authority to provide welfare benefits for anybody.
And you don't think there should be any state oversight? You know what I mean? The 50 states can act very differently. I mean, if say California was welfare friendly, wouldn't all the people that tended to rely on public assistance want to kind of flock to California? And wouldn't that be a bargaining chip for them then, a sales tactic to get more residents?
Well, it might be, but again, we have 50 states, and I think that the people of Virginia here, we're perfectly capable of handling the welfare needs of our citizens. I mean, we are one of the wealthier states. That's a given. I understand that, but we're more than capable of doing it. And one of the nice things about America is if you don't like the state you're living in, you can go to California if you want better welfare benefits. I know of a family that moved from here to Washington State, because at that time in the 90s, Washington State had really good welfare benefits, and they moved across the country for that.
Right. So I misunderstood you earlier. I thought that your basic approach to self-governance is, let's say, you got to do what-ifs when it comes to politics and religion.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do a what-if. I write fiction books, so I can do this sometimes if I really think. I was also an English major. Love English. Love my fellow English majors. Yes. English is a subject where everybody wants to say, what the hell are you going to do with an English degree? Well, we're doing what we're doing right now. It is a good foundational major, and you need it. You need to understand your language before you can learn to describe or ask questions in that language. And
you learn an awful lot of history too.
Absolutely, you have to. You can't be an English major without learning history and politics and philosophy too. All comes into play. But in fact, you look at somebody like Shakespeare, the best known name in English, arguably with Chaucer, and you find out right away that his whole attack was on politics for the most part and the human animal, and how funny he found the whole situation. Really, when you get into a lot of his work, But one thing I wanted to ask you is, my understanding was that your view was, okay, guy from Germany, you came over here legally, you got a job, good for you. You didn't have any friends, you weren't religious, so you weren't a member of a church. You brought no family with you. You've been working for 2.5 years at a factory job, been doing great, but you got laid off. Now, whose responsibility is he now? In America, my belief is that if I fall flat on my face, I will have been happy to have paid taxes into a fund that's going to help me recover without having to go beg anybody for help. What is your view on that? Do you disagree with that premise?
Well, again, given that scenario, which is a good illustration, like I said before, when family and friends and religious institutions or private charities, when they fail, okay, then it becomes responsibility of the local or state government. Again, I used to be against all government welfare. And a friend of mine, we actually discussed this question for about 15 years. We'd argue about it all the time. It's funny. But I came to realize that people are imperfect. People don't always do the right thing, and that's one of the reasons that we have government. If we were all perfect, we wouldn't need government. Right. We could set up the Marxist utopia.
Absolutely.
Which inevitably fails.
Yeah. And always will. Always will, as long as human nature is at work.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
so in your utopia, in your perfect America, what does the landscape look like?
In what regard?
Just politically, ideologically, religiously, what do you see when you look at Craig's perfect America?
Okay. Well, goodness gracious. I do have a chapter in the book.
It's a loaded question. I'm sorry, man, but I'll give you time with it.
That's okay. I just need to maybe break it down a little bit. I do have a chapter in the book which talks about like what a 21st century republic would look like.
Okay.
Or excuse me, what a 21st century constitutionally limited republic would look like. What it would look like, there'd be an awful lot less of the federal government. The federal government would do the things that a national government needs to do. Number one job is defense. I think that we should all realize now that there are people who don't like us and would do us damage if they could, as they have in the last dozen years or so. Things like the Department of Education would be gone because the federal government has no authority to do anything with education. And when they try it, they generally do a bad job. Again, I've been a teacher for 23 out of the last 25 years. I don't know what the Department of Education does but annoy teachers. My stepmom, she was a teacher for about 40 years, and I asked her, what's one good thing they've done? And she mentioned the school lunch program. That was all she could come up with. And she was a teacher for like 20 years before the Department of Ed and 20 years after. And so she could see the difference. They didn't make much of a difference. But like I said, there'd be a lot less, federal government anyway. Congress would be a part-time job. And hopefully they just get part-time pay. Then when they came back, like after their 3 months or 4 months in D.C., they have to go back to their district and work to make their living, and they have to work into the laws that they've just enacted. And that would be a good thing. I think you see a lot of difference in the laws. Let's see. So I guess that's maybe the federal government. Again, Craig's ideal republic, people would really take responsibility for themselves. They would do what's necessary to provide for themselves and their families. And we'd also be very generous with people who are genuinely in need. Even people who've made stupid mistakes. I mean, they'll still suffer a bit, but, they won't starve to death.
Right.
And actually, that's the way America used to be.
So you're saying we've vacated what was becoming a real American utopia, the way you saw it.
Well, I don't know about a utopia, but neighbors knew their neighbors. I mean, people didn't move around like they do today. The really big change happened like in the 1920s when, with the car, and people moving, lots of people moving from farms to the big cities to escape backbreaking labor. And I'm not against, escaping backbreaking labor. It's a tough way to make a living. But, people started to move to cities, and they really became anonymous to each other. And so if you don't know your neighbor, you don't know what's going on with them or anything, there's, you really don't know if they're having problems or not.
Right.
I mean, again, that's very doable today. Like, for example, some of us have, neighbors who are senior citizens. I mean, maybe they could use a little bit of our help for, helping them out, just like doing a little, cleanup around the house or, a house project or something they can't handle right then. Again, people being more generous with their time and their talent. One of the things that absolutely needs to happen is, people who are well off, we need to stop just throwing money at poverty. It's not working. People having a poverty mindset. We need, people who are successful need to go and mentor some kids.
Right.
And help them learn how to be successful. Again, that doesn't mean everybody becomes a millionaire, but everybody is self-sufficient as much as they can. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. It gives us a premise from which now I have to play devil's advocate because that's the nature of my show. So let's say I'm taking your view of what I'm getting here is that one of the foundational pillars of your view is personal responsibility.
Very much.
And, okay, now I understand that, and I'm going to, for the purpose of explaining where I stand politically and philosophically, I also agree that people that are able should be taking responsibility for their own lives. But I also have a serious question about our ability as a general public to assess when someone is capable or incapable of fully providing for themselves and their family. Once we put that vote out into the public, we're going to get answers as varied as culture itself. So how can we rely on something as you've already stated, is an uninformed voting public to make these big decisions on who to help and who not to help?
Well, again, part of the reason I wrote the book was to, make more informed voters. People just have not heard about citizenship and personal responsibility for a long time. It's not been discussed. You won't see a politician, unfortunately, running. Let's say they get a campaign question about, what are you going to do about jobs, and they don't say, well, you know what, it's your responsibility to create jobs. It's not the government's responsibility. We can't. Every time we tried, we failed.
Right. You believe the free market should dictate job creation?
Well, the free market, jobs are created a number of ways. When I was writing the book, I knew that the government, they can't fix the economy. They just don't have the ability. And by the way, the reason for that is the economy is made up of like all the economic decisions of all the citizens. Okay, if you save money in a bank account, you're affecting the economy. If you buy a big gulp, you're affecting the economy. Okay, and so let's say you have 300 million economic decision makers every single day making 10 decisions in that day. You're talking like 30, 3 billion decisions every day. The government can't manage that. And so the illusion that the idea that the government is controlling or managing the economy, that's just a pure illusion. Oh gosh, I forgot what your question was. That illustration, I'm sorry about that.
No, you know what that is?
Go back to it again.
Well, I like to leave a free rein in where you go with a question. So
free market. Okay, free market. Okay, yeah. But so I asked the question. Well, how in the world do economies recover? Okay, I've lived through the 70s. I saw that really horrible economy. I lived through the 80s. I saw the economy really pick up. I saw the 90s, and the economy was really kind of rolling then. I saw some very short recessions. And again, we've all lived through this last recession. Well, what actually makes the economy, what makes it recover? And there are a number of different factors. One is the discovery of new resources. We've discovered a lot of oil and natural gas resources in America in the last 5-10 years. And the problem is how to access them safely. North Dakota is having an oil boom.
That's right.
And, I think I forget what city it was or what town, but they're putting up 6 or 8 housing units every single week, and McDonald's, they are paying $15 an hour because they just can't find the workers. So when we have new resources, that gets an economy going. When we have new technology, remember the 90s and the internet. I mean, that just made the economy go boom for a long, long time. And and so obviously that happened. That new technologies, and that's happened every time we invention of the car, the telephone, planes, just anything like new technology will do good things for the economy. And I know there was a third factor, but I don't remember it. But the fourth factor is a lot of times it's just people's confidence in the economy. One thing that Reagan was very good at was he was very good at making people believe that they could accomplish things. He made them believe that people are you're in charge of your life and you don't need the government to help you do this.
Right.
So that's a third factor. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
It's a free market. Okay.
Yeah. And here's what we're going to do, Craig. I don't know how you want to handle this, but what I want to do is I want to open it up for questions in the chat room. Do you know how to access the chat room so that you can look at chat during the show?
I can look at it. We'll tell you what. Let me. Okay, hang on. It's at the bottom of the screen, I think, right?
Yeah, it's down in the lower right corner, depending on where you're listening from.
Okay, wait a second. Where are we?
And you should see like a little red number that shows how many chat messages are there.
Okay, I saw it before and it seems to have disappeared. Let me.
It may make you register. Apocalypse, who's one of my all-time loyal chat room guys, and I'm not special. He goes to everybody's chat room. He'll be able to tell if he'll be able to tell you if you have to register and stuff like that. He knows Spreaker upside down. But what we'll do is we'll take a break.
Okay.
I was just going to say we'll take a break. That'll give you some time to play with that until you can get into the chat. And then I'll put on some music. Everybody can go get their bathroom break or whatever. And then when we come back, we'll talk. I would like to talk to you more about religion. That's a big one I wanted to talk about tonight. And then I want to get into some specifics about the problems with our government. And I want to make some accusations, not against you, but against what I think is human nature and how it leads to people. This is just to give you a heads up, how it leads to people coming up with these seemingly deep political ideas that really come from a root of a more simple thought process. And we'll get into that, and I would just like to get your view on it. And then I'd like to open it up for questions, whether we get calls in with questions or they come from the chat room or whatever. So would you want to just call back in about 20 minutes and do it that way?
Sure, that's fine. 20 minutes. That's great.
Yeah, I know I'm keeping you up late. Do you have a schedule you have to work on?
No. It's summer vacation for teachers right now, and right now. I mean, if I need to, I can sleep as late as I want. My wife goes to work, and I can roll over and say, "Have a good day at work, honey," and go back to sleep. Kind of ticks her off. Okay. But anyway.
So right now it's 10:48 on my clock, and we'll come back at 10:58, say 11:05-ish.
Okay.
11:05 or 11:10, somewhere in there.
I'm good with 11:05. I want to get going here.
All right, that sounds good, buddy, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. You guys are listening to Craig Comas, and he's an author, a part-time columnist, a teacher, and he's got some views on self-government. He's got some views on religion, and we're going to get it out there, and we're going to bat it around. When I find myself in agreement with people, as I do with a few of the points he's made, I may not voice that, okay? What my job is to get people thinking, and to get people thinking logically and within the confines of good, sound reasoning. So what I'll do is I'll play devil's advocate, whether I agree with them or not, and I'll throw some hard questions at them, because what I'm doing really is I'm anticipating your questions. But that doesn't mean I can anticipate them all. So we need to see your questions in the chat room. We need you to call in with questions for Craig or I, and we're going to figure it out, what's right. My basic philosophy, I don't trust the American public, who Craig has already indicated is not informed, to make decisions that are going to affect the well-being of a family who has lost all their money paying medical bills for a kid who has autism, and they're trying to figure it out, and he's not adjusting, and he's been shuffled around between schools, and he's got major psychology issues. These are things where I'm not trusting my America. I'm telling you right now, I don't trust you, American public. I want government in place to make sure that when that happens, this family's taken care of. Now, he's going to disagree with that. He's going to rely on friends, family, church, and then in the extreme cases, if I'm hearing Craig right, then he thinks the government should step in. I don't think it should take that type of... See, here's what I don't want an American to have. If you come here, the guy from Germany, who came here legally, I don't want him to have a worry in the pit of his stomach that if he falls on his face through no real fault of his own, or at least through a fault that's understandable by medicine, then he ought not to have the worry that he's going to starve to death. I don't even want the worry there. Forget the practicality. I don't think you should ever have that worry. In America, we can afford to tell you, if you're working hard and something happens, we're going to take care of you, at least for a little while, at least for 6 months. We're going to take care of you. You're okay, okay? Don't worry about what's going to happen. Now, when that 6 months starts ticking up, you better be, by then, have formulated some other kind of plan. But that gives you time, that gives you confidence, that allows you to get real happiness. That's my view on that, and we'll get into it deeper. You tell me where I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong. I don't care. That's how I get right when people correct me. So we'll talk to Craig again in a little bit. I'm going to line up a few songs for you here. What are we going to play? What really applies? I got to play Bad Ace. I haven't played them in a while. Bad Ace. How about Reality Check? That's perfect for this. Bad Ace Reality Check. Bad Ace, you can find them at badace.com. You can find them on Facebook as well. Bad Ace. I know the drummer from Bad Ace. His name's Todd. He's the Mac Daddiest and the Daddy Macist, if I may, and I may. So you got to check, for you guys in southeastern Virginia, anywhere between Virginia Beach and Richmond, you're going to want to check out Todd's business, Western Shore Heating and Cooling. He'll do you right. And no, I don't get paid for this shit. I don't make a red cent on this show. But I know Todd, and I'm behind him. That's all. It's really that simple. You want to look for motivations? I'll tell you my motivations. So you're going to hear Bad Ace, then you're going to hear a quick little commercial about their drummer, that being Todd Jenkins. Then after that, I want something weird. You remember, did you guys hear, I just read tonight on one of those little sidebars on Facebook that there's going to be a Fight Club 2. How about that? That was one of the best movies ever on so many levels. That's a matter of opinion, but still, it's coming out. And I think that, let me make sure this is the right one. I think it's Purple Nurple. Sounds like a song. No, that's not the one. Copenhagen, that's it. Eno Copenhagen NV. Let me make sure. Yeah, this is the shit. This sounds like it came right out of Fight Club. I would be surprised if this wasn't a song used in the new Fight Club. So we're going to load that up. It's called Eno, E-N-O-E, Copenhagen NV. I don't know if that means Nevada or not virgin or neck volume. It could mean anything, So we'll have that up there. And then after that, let's put up one of the funkiest songs I've ever heard in my life, Lotag Blanco, Slumlord. That's going to play. And by then we should be back ready to rock and roll on this here show. And since that is that, here goes this.
You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
just 16. Then you became my high school dream. I didn't tell anyone my feelings for you. I kept them balled up inside. I didn't realize, oh no, you felt it too. My friend told me you were interested, and my heart dropped to the floor, because you didn't know just how I felt. I kept it hidden so well. You didn't realize, no, no, I felt it too. I didn't know that I could feel this way, even on such a rainy day. I didn't know a feeling of this kind. Feels so good inside. Feeling this way. I went to see you, but you weren't at home. But you called later on, sitting lonely by the telephone. We talked a little while, and I made you laugh. And then on the next day, I walked you to class. We didn't realize, no, 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 we felt this way. My high school dream had finally come true. We were together as one. Only to find it would be short-lived, no, no, because of some things that I had done. We didn't realize she knew so well. We didn't realize that she would tell. We didn't realize, no, no, it wasn't meant to be. I didn't know that I could feel this way, and even on such a sunny day. I didn't know a feeling of this kind. Feels so bad inside. Feeling this way. Ran across your picture, baby, just the other day. Imagine conversation, you knew just what to say. I held you in my arms and never let you go. And I realized I loved you ever more. I didn't realize, no, I didn't realize, I didn't realize I felt so strong for you. I didn't know that I could feel this way, and even on such a cloudy day. I didn't know a feeling of this kind. Feels so good inside. feeling this way.
Ladies and gents, if you like the music by Bad Ace, make sure to check them out on Facebook or at badace.com, just like it sounds. For those of you in Southeast Virginia, I'm going to show you how small the world can be. The drummer from Bad Ace also owns an HVAC company called Western Shore Heating and Cooling. They do the works: AC, heating, air purifying, geothermal, repairs, all of that. You can find them at westernshoreinc.com or call 804-725-8984. I've known Todd, the owner over there, forever, and he's one of those guys that everybody loves, and you'll see why when you get in touch with Todd at Western Shore Inc.
You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead. Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead. You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
You heard it. Yeah. Ain't nobody hating here. Craig Comus will be calling back in just a minute. He's going to talk to us more about religion and the idea of self-governance, whether or not that will work or not. Should it work? What is the ideal political party? Should there be no political parties? We'll get into all of it. What I'm going to try to get him to talk about first is religion, because even though most religions have no real scientific basis, a few claims here and there, the effect on humanity using philosophical terms and a philosophical framework can be measured. We can measure that. We can look at the differences between those who are this religion and that religion, those who are no religion and many religions. We can do that. And we will. All right. Truth on Tap, the show. Kevin Kierstead, the host. Craig Comus is the guest. And you are the listener. Listeners need to hear your questions. Get into the chat room and you can ask your questions there, or you can call in. So, Craig, are you back with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
There, yeah. We're going to go ahead and cut this song I had playing in the background here. Okay, Craig. Well, this is the second half of the show, and I like to try to open it up to questions and things like that. We don't always have a huge chat room participation going on. Sometimes it's bumping, sometimes it's not. Right now, it's rather stagnant, but it could pick up, and I expect that there may be some post hoc type questions later on the Facebook page. But why don't we get into it? Religion. You are a fundamental Christian, would you say?
Well, fundamentalist is kind of a loaded word nowadays. Let's say I try to be a biblical Christian. I subscribe to Orthodox Christianity, the same Christianity that's been around since Jesus.
And so you're not of a particular denomination. You don't believe in Baptist over Catholic over Protestant over.
No.
Okay.
Well, we'll see. Actually, this might get some calls. I come from a Jewish background, and that's why I was dragged kicking and screaming into Christianity. And when I first became a believer, I went to a Word of Faith church. Had very good, strong teachings on faith, but after about 17 years, it was time to go. And my family, we church shopped, I guess, for about a year. For a little while, we attended a Reformed Presbyterian church, which was very, emphasized Calvinism a lot. The idea of predestination and whatnot. And that just really didn't fit. We didn't agree with that. We didn't think that was especially biblical. And now we go to what's called an Assemblies of God church. It's Pentecostal. We only do the snakes on Saturday night, though, so don't worry about if you want to come on a Sunday. So that but one thing, coming from a Jewish background, I didn't come up in denominational Christianity, and I looked at it and just it's great. I guess they all believe slightly different things on the edges, but the things that really don't matter. Like adult baptism versus infant baptism, things like that. I mean, that's not going to make any difference in anybody's salvation or not, And so I think every denomination has got its strengths and weaknesses. But no, I don't favor one denomination over another.
Okay, I'm looking at religions of the world here, and as you know, as an educated person, there are many. If I come into this blind and I'm looking to get educated and I'm listening to a Catholic speak, and then he has his time, he has an hour to speak, and then I put up there a Jew and they speak for an hour, and then I get somebody up there who is talking about Islam, Sunni and then Shiite. I'm getting real confused here. So you're telling me, though, that the core principles, essentially, of these religions is the same, but is it? I mean, you've heard of what's written in the Quran about killing those that won't convert. But how do I know, as somebody who comes in blind, which one of these religions has it right, if any do?
Okay. Well, I guess I made myself misunderstood a moment ago. When I was talking about denominations, I was talking about Christian denominations. Okay. There's a core of doctrine which just about all of them agree on. C.S. Lewis called it mere Christianity, the Christianity that every denomination taught is true, like the resurrection of Christ, which is the central doctrine. Every denomination that's Christian believes that. I did not, and I hope I didn't communicate this. I wasn't trying to say that other religions are true. And again, this is where you've really got to go to logic here. It's kind of interesting. When I first became a believer, that was also my first year at VCU, and I ended up taking 2 courses in logic that year. So I just think it's kind of interesting how that came together. But if you look at it logically, okay, you got all these different religions, and like you said, there's a lot of religions. Yeah, I mean, there are new religions every single week. People make up religions and all that. Well, here's the deal. They're all saying different things, okay? For example, I come from a Jewish background. A Jew is not going to say that Jesus was resurrected. They'll say that, he was killed, he was a good man, but, the story that the Christians are making up as a resurrection, that's just not true. And if you go to a Muslim, he's going to say, well, Jesus was never crucified. God substituted him with Judas Iscariot, made him look like Jesus and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Hindus would say, well, there's not just one God, there are many gods, and they believe in reincarnation. And so when you look at all these different religions, they all have different doctrines, okay? Mm-hmm. And the doctrines are mutually exclusive, okay? So, you can't have, Hinduism be true and Islam be true, okay? At the same time, it's like, you can't have A and not A be true at the same time in the same way. So right. there's really only two conclusions. Number one, no religion is true, okay? If all religions are saying something different from each other, then one possibility is that none of the religions are true. That's what atheists would say. None of them have like a core of central truth or anything. And the other possibility, just logically, since they all disagree with each other, is that one religion is true, and all the others are wrong. And I know to some people that sounds so arrogant, but that's just reality. There's just beyond those two possibilities, there's just not any wiggle room.
Right.
And by the way, just because I believe Christianity is true doesn't mean I need to go out and beat up Muslims and and terrorize Hindus and all that. Just because I think they're wrong, that's not what Jesus taught anyway.
Well, but if you're a fan of reason and logic, and you have no problem believing that Jesus Christ was dead for 3 days and rose again, wherein do you make the marriage between reason and logic and someone dead being brought back to life after the biological process of death has already begun?
Okay.
And been enacted for 3 days.
Okay. Well, when you accept even the possibility that God exists, okay, and I believe that God exists. There's as a matter of fact, when I read your summary of what the show is going to be like tonight, I realized, I better do my homework real quickly, and so I wrote down a few. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just laughing.
I wrote down. Okay. Well, anyway, I wrote down a few arguments for the existence of God. We can talk about those if you want to, but
sure, I would love to hear it.
Okay. Well. Let's see, the question was, the resurrection, okay? Well, if God exists, okay, then, God created the universe and everything in it, okay? A lot of people, I think it's kind of funny, they have a major problem with the virgin birth. The idea is Mary could not have been a virgin, we have to have, a man and a woman get together, and that's the way they make a baby. Well, if God exists, I think God is capable of making a sperm cell inside of a woman. He created the entire universe, all the galaxies. I think one sperm is within God's capabilities there. Well, the same thing with the resurrection. If God created earth and and heavens and everything else, well, he's capable of resuscitating a body that's been dead for 3 days.
Okay. Now, you understand, though, that there's a logical fallacy here. This is the one we call ad ignorantium, and this is the argument from ignorance. And I'm not talking, I'm not saying it's ignorant. I'm saying that it basically states that a specific belief is true because we don't know that it isn't true. So shouldn't, if you're arguing logic here.
Okay. Well,
go ahead.
What I was saying, one thing about logic. I remember, we're using deductive and inductive logic, and whenever you use deductive logic, you always started from premises.
Right.
Okay. So what I was saying is if one gives the premise that it is possible that God exists, okay, then it is possible that miracles happen.
But you understand that's not a strong argument.
Well, I didn't say it was the strong argument. Strong argument. But what I was just saying is that, oh golly,
You're saying if we go with the premise that God possibly exists, then almost everything that's been attributed to him is entirely possible. I'm with that. Logically, that flows.
Well, yeah, exactly. That it is possible. That doesn't mean it's true, okay? But I was just saying it becomes, logically speaking, becomes possible at that point. Do you follow me? And
I'm in agreement with you there.
Okay, so a miracle would not contradict science or logic.
Right.
One of the, again, I've read way too much C.S. Lewis. One of his, I guess, he used lots of analogies, and I don't believe in arguing from analogies, but but sometimes they're good illustrations and help you see a point. You mentioned Shakespeare. Okay. I've read, again, way too many plays by Shakespeare. I've taught it. I've even tried to teach freshman high school students, how to scan the meter. Look, these are iambs and these are trochaics and all that kind of stuff. Well, Shakespeare wrote most of his plays in what's called iambic pentameter. That's like you have the five metrical feet where you have the unstressed syllable followed by the stressed syllable. You remember from your English degree.
Yeah. Well, you know it way more than I do when it comes to Shakespeare, I can assure you. But yeah.
Well, no better way to learn it than to teach it. But anyway, so Shakespeare was following these different patterns of meter and everything. But Shakespeare also broke the rules when it was appropriate to break the rules.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like God's creator. So we have these laws that we've observed the last few hundred years, and we've made them up into our science books. Well, again, if God exists and God created the world, and that means that God created the laws. Well, God occasionally sets the law aside, and performs a miracle, or I think a lot more than occasionally, but that's a different discussion. So, like I said, I don't see miracles. I don't see the resurrection. I don't see the virgin birth. I don't see that kind of stuff as being contrary to science. Matter of fact, the first church I went to, it's called Richmond Christian Center, still around, way back in the 80s, and that was one Sunday I was not there. I was living in Virginia Beach, and I go to the church like every other weekend. But this was in the newspapers, Richmond Times-Dispatch. There was a prayer line, and a woman died in the prayer line. And there were three doctors there. One, his name is Roderick Haycock. I'm pretty sure he's retired by now. His wife was the principal of the school where I first taught. Well, anyway, these doctors, the woman was dead. Her eyes were dilated. Bladder released itself. I don't know about the bowels, but she was doorknob dead for about 7 minutes. And the pastor had been giving a teaching on the miracle working power of God. Well, lo and behold, here it is. And the congregation prayed. The doctors are doing CPR and things like that. We don't just. We're not like Christian scientists who don't believe in doing lots of medicine when it's available. But anyway, after 7, 8 minutes, something like that, the woman came back to life. And so I'm just so, like I said, it just to me it just doesn't seem contrary to logic. Like I said, I've seen that kind of thing. Again, I'm getting older now. My body is not as young as it once was, and when I feel different pains and whatnot, I'm quick to lay hands on myself, and pray for healing, and I just go forward with it. So,
well, let me ask you this: so you believe in that church that day, that had there not been prayer, this woman wouldn't have come back?
Well, we don't know that, but I know that there aren't too many people who come back after 5 or 7 minutes.
Well, I'll give you an example of somebody, and this is off the top of my head. Do you know who Betty J. Eady is?
No, I don't. I'm not familiar with that name.
Okay, she's not that popular. Most people aren't familiar with her, but she has written a few books. Now, she's very Christian, and she laid on an operating table, and she's Indian, and she's the mother of like 7 kids, and she died for 8 minutes. Now, there was no prayer at work there, but they brought her back. But what she said she saw while she was gone was the entire kingdom of God. And she talks about how she was in a room with a council of 12 men, and that Jesus talked to her and said, she needs to go back, and he couldn't tell her why, but there were, things she had to do. And she talks about warrior angels and what it's like in the afterlife, and the music and the visuals, and she gets into all of this. And she says that no, there's no hell, that when people die, if they don't accept Jesus, what she called I may be paraphrasing here, but I believe she called it a comfortable tornado, where you're just spinning around. You're comfortable, but you're not in the kingdom. You're not alive. You're not moving. So, and they can still reach out and become connected. Now, scientists, the hardcore skeptics, are going to tell you she had some delusions. She had some dreams while she was conked out. The brainstem was still alive, even though the brain was dead, and it was kicking around some neurological signals. How do you disagree with them and make your argument sound that, no, she was up there interacting with God during those 8 minutes? How can I believe? And I read 3 of her books, and I'm just going, this is a beautiful story, but I can't believe it. I want to. I just can't. Am I being too skeptical? Not open enough to possibility?
Well, no, not necessarily. As a matter of fact, like I said, I'm a, it may not sound like it the way we're talking right now, everything, but I'm a pretty skeptical person by nature. Like I said, it took about 8 or 10 years for me to accept Christ, and I remember there was one time I was ticked off about something, and somebody must have been praying for me, because I thought that I sensed like that Jesus wanted to know me, and I cursed him. And but just he was on me for like the next 8 or 10 years, and just wore me out. I mean, it was just like, I'm not going to, there's just a lot of different things, like a lot of people in my life, very, very odd times. But as far as that woman, I don't know that. I mean, I'm sure she. I think based on what you're saying, like she had some sort of vision or something. Whether it was simply a dream that her own body created, I don't know. Whether it was something that like I say, if you believe that God exists, and then perhaps other spiritual things could exist. My personal opinion, although like I'm just basing on what you told me, is I think the woman was deceived. Because again, I'm pretty trusting of the Bible. It's it stood the test of time for me, and Jesus talked about hell more than anybody, and so I just don't think that I mean, again, it's like, remember we talked about mere Christianity, some of these basic core beliefs, and they've been in common in most Christians and most times. Well, that's one of them, and it's not a doctrine I like, but it is what it is.
So you believe now, let me just clarify this, though, because you believe that if I'm an agnostic right now. Agnostic is like agnostic, but first we ask, what do you mean by God, before we'll even ponder the question, because we get so many definitions of God. You believe that this ultimate creator put us here on earth, imperfect as we are, and if we're too skeptical to accept that he even exists, he's going to take this imperfect creature who was broken from the beginning, who didn't find his salvation somehow, and he's going to let him burn in hell for eternity. Is that what you believe?
Well, let me rephrase that, because there are a couple of things I'd like to, I guess, clarify. First off, when God created people, and I believe in Adam and Eve. You might call me foolish or whatever, but when God created people were perfect. Okay, and then the man fell. Eve was tempted, Eve was deceived, and Adam just simply disobeyed God by eating the fruit of the tree of good and knowledge of good and evil, and and sin became part of the nature. It's the doctrine of original sin. Again, a very common doctrine. Golly, G.K. Chesterton. He wrote lots of short stories, and he wrote a book called Orthodoxy. But he called original sin a doctrine, or a fact as plain as potatoes. And if you look at history, I mean, my goodness, we know that people are far from perfect, and people can be just downright evil. And I think if we took a good long look in the mirror, good long look at our lives, we could see that most of us have done some pretty terrible things. Things that we're ashamed of, things we hope that nobody will ever find out about. Am I still on?
Yeah, you're still on. We're just getting a little bit of static right now.
That's all right. And so, so people do, they are born, with original sin. And again, that's not our fault. Good. I got that. I'm in agreement with it. It's not fair, but that's the way it is. But again, I'm going back to the scriptures. Everybody, according to the scriptures, if you go to the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 9, it says that, oh golly, let me see if I can, actually that's one I got memorized. But basically it says that everybody has some revelation of Jesus. Some more than others. And it depends on how we respond to the revelation that we're given. Even before Christ was resurrected, Jesus talked about how the Ninevites who repented at the preaching of Jonah, and how the Queen of Sheba who received the wisdom of Solomon, how they would judge those generations. Well, obviously, then the Queen of Sheba and the Ninevites would not be in hell. They responded to the revelation that they were given, and depending on how much we respond to what God tells us, what God reveals to us, that determines whether or not we go to heaven or hell.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you a very hard question that I've actually never asked anybody, and it's for the purposes of academic progress here. What would I have to say to convince you that God didn't exist?
Oh gosh. I'm trying to think of an answer. I've actually had a few people tell me that they had absolute proof that God did not exist, and I asked them to tell me, okay, well, what is it? I'd like to know. And they wouldn't tell me.
I don't believe that proof exists, personally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, fair enough. Well, I can tell you as far as the God of the Bible, you would have to prove that Jesus was not resurrected. And I know proving a negative is really hard to do and everything, but you'd have to have like really hardcore evidence that Jesus' body is still in the ground or in a tomb somewhere. James Cameron claimed to have found Jesus' bone box with a bunch of other people. And that was quickly shown to be very, very shaky at best. Yeah. But again, with Christianity, it stands or falls on the resurrection of Christ, and so you'd have to show me that the resurrection, either did not happen or just simply, could not happen even with a miracle or something.
Okay, so it would take hardcore proof that the resurrection was false to make you question this belief in God. But what hardcore proof do you have that the resurrection is true? Okay,
well. Number one,
I'm playing Socrates here.
No, that's good. Okay. Well, number one, just as a caveat at the beginning, I don't think that you actually have like absolute proof to prove something that happened historically in the past. You have evidence. Okay.
Okay.
It's kind of like you have a murder trial. Okay, somebody's on trial, and it's up to the police to produce evidence that's beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, and so I'm not saying that there's evidence which absolutely proves that Jesus was resurrected, but there is evidence that indicates that he was. Do you follow me?
I haven't seen that evidence, but I follow you.
You with me there? Okay. Okay, no, yes. That's fine. But I just wanted to just but before before I started getting into it a little bit, I just wanted you to say to let you know I'm not. I mean, you may or may not accept what I'm saying, and that's fine. But I'm not offering you absolute proof, but I am offering you evidence. Okay.
You're saying that the burden of proof is a high one toward the end of disproving rather than proving, because people have already testified that he rose after 3 days. Now it's up to us to disprove that. Is that essentially your format for the foundational belief?
Okay. Well, let me again. I didn't make myself clear, and that's fine.
It's probably my interpretation. You probably are making yourself clear to listeners, but
okay, that's okay. Well,
my job is to question here. I got to question you. I got to see where you stand.
Well, I want to make sure what I said, what I said is understood. Okay, way, because the way I meant it. What I'm saying is, I can give you evidence that the resurrection happened. Okay, I can't give you absolute proof because that's just like not in the nature of history. Do you follow me? We can't prove historical evidence happened beyond a doubt. We may be able to prove it beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt, but we can't prove it beyond. We can't give absolute proof for historical events. Okay, especially the ones that happened thousands and thousands of years ago.
Right.
One evidence. Okay, and I don't know if you remember Chuck Colson. He was part of the Nixon administration, and he was involved in Watergate, with the cover-up and everything, and he ended up going to jail. And he eventually got saved. And when he was released from jail, he started this ministry called Prison Fellowship, which is basically making prison life humane and making an opportunity to change rather than just warehousing criminals. Well, he was part of the Watergate conspiracy. And one of the things he says that conspiracies, they always break down. Somebody eventually cracks. Well, the 12 apostles and a lot of the other disciples, they reported seeing Jesus after he's resurrected. You got the 2 disciples that saw Jesus on the road to Emmaus. You've got the 12 apostles and with a lot of other disciples in the upper room. They claimed to have seen Jesus. They saw him eat. A couple claimed to have touched him and all that. Well, they all claim that to be true. And with a lot of the apostles, from what we know of history, they died some pretty horrible deaths. Peter was crucified on a cross upside down. Matthew was killed some horrible way in India. But the thing is, if the resurrection is not true, then these people died for what they knew was not true. And people just generally don't do that. They'll die for a lie that they believe. In other words, if they think it's true, they'll die for it. Like Muslims will, obviously. Remember David Koresh and the Texas thing with the I forget what that group was called. I mean, they died.
Branch Davidians in Waco.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, they died for what they believe was true. Okay, but people generally don't die for what they believe, for what they know is not true. Okay, so that's one evidence. Okay, another evidence is where's the body? I mean, Christ's resurrection was taught and preached in Jerusalem within weeks after his death.
Right.
Nobody had the body.
They never found O.J.'s knife. They never found O.J.'s knife. Do you think that?
I know. The man looks and smells guilty. I mean, Mark Furman was a reasonable doubt, unfortunately.
Yeah, he was.
That's terrible. Again, but notice that he when he went for the civil case, he was convicted. Well, not convicted, but he lost based on the preponderance of the evidence. Okay, yes. It was a lower standard of proof. And what I'm saying is kind of look at the various evidences. Let's see, what was I getting at? Nobody produced the body, and everybody and there's an empty tomb. Everybody knew where Jesus was buried. I think he was buried in the tomb of, I think, belonged to Nicodemus or somebody, or Joseph of Arimathea. people people have pre-need burial plans now and everything. Well, some people, the rich people back then did the same thing. They'd have a tomb built, carved out of a rock before they died, and and somebody let Jesus be in the tomb, and people Joseph they couldn't really mistake the tomb. They knew who it belonged to, but so nobody ever produced a body. Okay, and again, if the disciples hit it like a lot of people say. Again, they died for a lie, which just does not make sense. A lie which they knew was, which they knew was a lie.
Right.
A lot of post-resurrection appearances in front of a lot of people. There was one time, I think it was in the book of Acts, but I know it was reported in several of Paul's letters that Jesus appeared to 500 people at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And these are first or second hand reports. We have no reason to disbelieve these things. I know that sounds kind of weak right there, but the reports are very consistent with each other. Not absolutely consistent, but very but very consistent with each other.
Okay.
I wasn't. To be honest with you, if I knew the resurrection was going to come up, I would. There are a couple of books I would have gotten and really quickly review the material. One of the books which is really good is by Josh McDowell called "Evidence That Demands a Verdict," and he starts in the very beginning of is the Bible reliable and whatnot, and gives lots of evidence and arguments for that. And then he's got a whole chapter about the resurrection. Another fella named Lee Strobel wrote a book called The Case for Christ, The Case for Faith, which is about some of the really tough questions, like the doctrine of hell, like you were asking about. Right. He conducted interviews with people who are experts on these kinds of questions, and so I don't think I did justice to the evidence of the resurrection of Christ, but books by Josh McDowell, Lee Strobel, and there are other people too. That do a good job of explaining the evidence, which I think is very persuasive evidence for believing that the resurrection of Christ is true. I hope that doesn't sound.
What we can do? We can do a whole new show maybe next week on just the resurrection and religion, and I'll try to hit you with some more hard questions. But we're coming toward the close of this show, so I wanted to see if I could get a couple questions in here from people.
That's fine.
And Apocalypse asks you, do you believe in predestination or free will? You touched on it earlier.
Oh yeah, I on your phone number, like it says, like 910 no lying. Okay.
Yes.
I feel I'm a sucker for the truth, and I feel compelled to give honest answers, even if it makes me look bad.
Hey, I think you have. I think you've been very honest.
Well, I try. I will say that a case can be built for predestination from the Bible, and I will say that a case can be built for free will, from the Bible. I think it's one of those, we call them in-house debates. It doesn't really affect anybody's salvation, and we can talk about it. But I really stand on the idea of free will, even though, and in some ways, my life may be evidence against that, because, like I said, God wore me out. I did not want to become a Christian, and He was just after me, in my heart for years. So I don't know if that's a satisfactory answer, but that's the best one I got at the moment.
No, it's a perfect answer. I was wondering, you went from a Jewish background to Christian, and I have a friend named Joe who did just the opposite. Now, if God was on you for years about coming to this light, how do you know it wasn't the Jewish God? Or is the Jewish God in your mind the same as the Christian God minus Jesus?
Well, all right, the God of the Bible, the God of the Old Testament is the same God is the God of the New Testament. They're one and the same. Okay. And as far as I couldn't tell you why your friend Joe went from Christianity to Judaism. I know that there are people who do it. I honestly, why they did that. There's one scripture that says, it's in 1 John, I think it's chapter 2, verse 19, which basically says if somebody leaves, leaves Christianity, they leave Jesus, that they were never saved in the first place. That's like a support for Calvinism right there. So again, I don't know, what kind of Christian were they? One of the things about Christianity is there are a number of doctrines, but Christianity is about a relationship. I pray. I'm not trying to brag about it. It's like I feel the desperate need to do it all the time because, I've realized now that people just are not equipped to operate effectively without God. And I know that for me to try to hopefully complete whatever God's mission for my life is, to complete that, I need to spend time with Him. I need, and so it's like I said, it's a relationship. And I think some people who profess Christianity, Jesus said, there are going to some people who say, "Lord, Lord," and Jesus will say, "I never knew you."
Mm-hmm.
So that may be
okay.
So again, I can't speak. I can't speak for Joe. I'm not accusing me of anything bad, but I'm just saying. But I think that's what it is with a lot of people who leave the faith. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to try to tell me if I got this right, because I feel like a few times during the show I made the mistake of putting words in your mouth, because I got it wrong, and on review I did have it wrong. But I want to see if I got this one thing right. You were basically talking a little bit earlier about science, and it sounds like, if I'm just interpreting what you said based on a very small amount of information, that you think science is still really in its infancy. It has no capabilities to deal with questions like those of God. Is that accurate, or am I even close?
Well, what I've heard, again, that's not a question I've thought deeply about, but science isn't necessarily asking the kinds of questions about God. Okay, science from from its beginnings is kind of like an exploration of the universe, of people, and actually the most of the people who began a specific branch of science, like up through the 19th and even into the 20th century, a lot of those people were very serious Christian believers. I think the guy named Hoyle, who discovered like the principle of blood circulation, or something to do with the circulatory system. He's an example. Sir Isaac Newton, kind of began modern physics. He was a very serious believer. And when a Christian looks at science, we're just saying, okay, well, gosh, this gives us a lot of information about the universe and reality that God created. And so we don't see a contradiction between the two. That was, and actually, Lee Strobel he found a scholar who knew a lot about the history of science and sort of where Christianity and science supposedly split. But it's like in terms of science, I will say that science is always it's always open to correction. Sort of the scientific method. We'll have a theory. For example, I think they recently modified the theory of gravity. In some sense, I think having to do with something about gravity in a vacuum or something.
Yeah, they have gravity waves,
science is no good. I'm sorry.
You're right. They've come up with new science. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, see, science is supposed to be self-correcting. And I'm not saying science is in its infancy, but we're human beings. We don't know everything. We could be wrong. And generally speaking, as science progresses, it fixes mistakes of previous generations, or just modifies what we've learned. We just learn more about it. Although some people say it's like we're learning more and more about less and less, but but that's the way science works. But again, I have no problem with science. I just don't think we should make science do more than it's capable of doing.
Okay. Now, I want to give you a chance to close here on the topics. We've been talking about self-governance and religion. If people could only take away 2 minutes worth of this show, what would you have them take away from what you've had to say?
Okay. Well, the one thing about self-government is, again, we have a choice. We can choose to govern ourselves and get actively engaged with our government and really, keep these guys and gals in Congress accountable, or we don't. And if we do, it'll be a lot of hard work, and we'll be like sort of turning the giant ocean liner around. It's going to take a lot of time, and it won't be an easy process, but it is possible to make that change. If we don't, we're going to end up. We're definitely going to end up broke. I mean, what we have now is just simply not financially sustainable. There's more of that in the book. I mean, we don't have enough rich people to pay for all the welfare that a lot of people want. And I guess you mentioned two things. To be honest with you, the last chapter of the book is called "But God," and this may sound real controversial, but I don't believe that we would actually take up our responsibility to govern ourselves again unless there's a move of God in this country. I pray for a revival because I think we're desperately in need of it. As a teacher for 23 years, I'm seeing the damage that are really awful choices that people make, what the damage they do to kids, and then the mistakes just keep being made more and more as each generation goes on. So, okay. I don't know, maybe that was clear as mud, but there we are.
No, I thought that was pretty clear, and I think it was a good summary of what you believe. And what we'll do, Craig, if you want to, is within a week or two, we can do another show, or two or three, and get deeper into this. And I'll try to keep hitting you with the hard questions. That's fine. I feel like I agreed with a lot of what you said, and it's hard for me to play devil's advocate or scientist when I'm agreeing with a lot of what you're saying. My religious beliefs are different than yours, and I believe in the necessity of government, an effective government, to make sure that a people behaves itself and has a chance to survive, at least as it applies to the Constitution in pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And, so we could get into picking bones on that, but overall, I think you made your case tonight for what you believe in, and anybody listening will probably believe that as well. So what I'll do is on my Facebook page for the announcement of this show and on the Spreaker description for it, and this goes to iHeart later as a podcast, I'll put a link to you and how to find you and your book title and content, and we'll try to steer some people your way that way.
Hey, by the way, also I've got a blog. The title is "Everybody Has a Right to My Opinion," and when I set it up, I was really tired and in a hurry, and so the URL is like "Everybody's Right to My Opinion." But if they Google "Everybody's Right to My Opinion" and my name, I was tired. They'll eventually get there. And actually, it's kind of funny. Today, I ended up putting sort of like the core basic philosophy and how my philosophy shapes my view of public policy. And I did it in 250 words. So, but anyway, so if you really want to see some meat, there it is. So anyway, but yeah, I had a lot of fun on the show, and I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to seeing you again, to doing this again.
All right, it has been my pleasure, and I will talk to you again soon, Craig.
Okay. Well, have a good one.
Thank you, sir. You too now. Craig Comas was your guest tonight, and I'll close here with a little bit about the show. I think he made his case, and this is something that him and I will talk about on future shows. That is the shifting line of evidential requirements based on what it is you want to believe or not believe. When someone gets into a faith, there's a premise set that you cannot. You can take everything from that point where they've adopted faith and forward, and you can use logic. But you cannot use logic to get from pure science into the faith. There's nothing that convincing out there to me. So I can't sit here and say, okay, damn it, I'm going to be a Christian. I am. I'm going to be a Christian. I'm going to believe in the Jesus. And tell Buddhists and tell Jews and tell Confucians and tell, Taoist, Wiccan, Shinto, flying spaghetti monster, you're all going to burn in a lake of fire for eternity because you don't believe in my brand. I can't do that. Now, what religious people will say is I'm weak. I'm spiritually weak. I need to find Jesus and get my shit straight. They may say that. But what I'm saying is I've been shown the Jesus. I've been shown the Buddha, said Arthur Guantama. I've been shown the tribal religions. I played Ogun, the African god of war and iron, in college. And my question rose then, and it said, who am I to tell these other religions they're wrong? They've got their documents, they've got their evidence. Something's not right here. Somebody is wrong. Well, I haven't found the answer to that yet, folks, and that leaves me stuck firmly in the camp of agnosticism. Whether or not that's right, I don't know. I've never tried to sell it. Have I ever told you be agnostic? You'll never hear me say that. I'm just telling you that's where I live. And Craig may have some good arguments against why that's a bad idea. And we'll give him a chance to make those arguments in the future. For those of you that don't know, you need to go check the Facebook page out, because that's where I'm going to put some links on how to find Craig. That is facebook.com/TruthOnTapShow. Don't forget the show. TOTS is an easy way to remember it. Facebook.com/TruthOnTapShow. I'll put the links there to his information. And I'll update the Spreaker description to include those links. We're getting ready to go over and listen to a show now by Goofy Bone. Do you know the Goofy Bone, kids? Well, you should. Apocalypse is leading me there, and for that reason I have to go, because he brings people to my show, and I at least owe him that. I don't know much about Goofy Bone. I know he's a controversial figure on Spreaker, and we're going to find out why tonight. And I'll weigh in with my 2 cents, or 0.3 cents after taxes. And we'll have some fun with it. So I think I'll put a link to Goofy Bone's show as well on the Facebook page announcement for this episode that you're listening to here. And I'm opening it up right now. Just go to Spreaker.com/user/GoofyBone, just like it sounds. And in a few minutes here, you're going to see a live show there. You can listen to that. Because we're so close to that midnight mark, 3 minutes out from it, I'm not going to play any music on the way out, but I do have a couple more things to say, so we'll keep it going for now. So first, I set up this show as Kev versus Craig, and part of me did that for commercial reasons. One thing I don't do is mislead you here. It sounded better than Kevin and Craig talk religion and self-governance, doesn't it? It draws you in when you think there's going to be a debate. But I had my doubts, and they were actually turned out to be realized. That he comes from an avenue of pretty strong logic. He's got way more teaching experience than I have. He was an English major like me, but then stayed in it, and I didn't. So he's got more knowledge in that. He's got way more knowledge in the Christian religion than I do. And when those things are happening, all I can do is be a Socrates. All I can do is say, look, I don't have a lot of tools to work with in this debate. Not this particular debate. Self-governance we could talk about, but not the religion thing. So I have to just say, what would Socrates ask right now if his aim, as it always was in my view, was to get deeper understanding? And so that's what I did, and so that's what I'll do next show. So anyway, the link is posted on my Facebook page for Goofy Bones show. Over time, whether it's the next few minutes or the next few hours, I'll get Craig's links up there as well, so you can find him. Like I said, I thought he was well informed. He's got there are no holes in his education. He understands how logic works. But he was willing to go into the voluntary suspension of disbelief to jump over into faith. This is what everybody of faith must do, because the evidence is not overwhelming for any one religion to be the correct single religion. I personally, if I found out that my God was real and he was going to let me burn in hell for eternity for being imperfect in this blink of an eye life we have, I wouldn't serve that God. I would go ahead and take hell, because that's not a loving God. I'm sorry. You can give love any definition you want to, but you know what I'm saying. That argument I'm sticking with. I believe that. I believe if you do good in your life and you believe in humanity and you help your neighbor, and I mean that strictly in the symbolic sense because my neighbor's an asshole, then I don't see how you go to hell. I don't see it. I can't fathom it. And at this point in my life, at 42, unripe years old, I'm having trouble finding new evidence that would lead me in a different direction. But I will give Craig a chance to provide that evidence as we go on in our shows. We may go on for 2, 3, 10 more episodes, whatever he wants to do. That's what we'll do. So let me close some of this stuff down. We're getting ready to get up out of here. It is midnight. It is the witching hour, which is actually 3 a.m. Or it depends on who you talk to. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to call that a show. Make sure in the future that you call into the show with your questions. 910-NO-LYING or Skype me. Skype mr.kevin.kierstead. I'm going to play you a quick commercial for those that may have joined late, and then we're going to get up out of here. That is that, and here goes
You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
Ladies and gents, this is Kevin Kierstead, host of Truth on Tap and Caps on Tap. I hope you're enjoying the show. Truth on Tap is focused on bringing you absolute truth about everything from mainstream media to comedy, from psychology to the paranormal. This show keeps it real, not the fake kind of real, the real kind of real. That same spirit also covers our Caps on Tap show about the Washington Capitals. Caps on Tap shows air only after Capitals wins at this time. Please come like our Facebook page and join the conversation at facebook.com/Truth on Tap show. Truth on Tap has been picked up and promoted by iHeartRadio, the internet audio mega monster, so shows are available there as well as on Spreaker and a limited selection on iTunes. To get in on a show's chat, you can chat from the Facebook page I mentioned or go to www.spreaker.com/user/truth-on-tap and look for the live episode or call in at 910-NO-LYING. That's 910-665-9464. Thanks again for checking out Truth on Tap and Caps on Tap.